Marcus Ellington was 39 years old the evening Vanessa said it out loud at the dinner table, in front of their children. A had driven home in the same 2016 F-150 had had for 6 years. He had set the table because Vanessa had asked him to. A had poured the sweet tea and cut the cornbread and smiled at his mother-in-law when she complimented the renovation he'd done on the kitchen ceiling. Vanessa waited until the plates were mostly cleared, until their daughter Amara, 9 years old, had started drawing in her sketchbook at the table, until their son Caleb, 7, was halfway through his slice of pound cake. She waited until Marcus was in the middle of a sentence. Then she set her fork down and said with the calm of a woman who had practiced it that marrying Marcus had been the biggest regret of her life. His mother-in-law went still. Her sister looked at the tablecloth. Amara's pencil stopped moving. Marcus said nothing. He looked at Vanessa for a long moment. He picked up his glass. He finished his sweet tea. That silence his children would remember years later had sounded like the moment before a verdict. Vanessa didn't know that Marcos had already spoken to his attorneys 4 weeks prior. She didn't know that the LLC she had helped him name, that she had once signed her initials onto during a routine paperwork session and then forgotten entirely, had appreciated to something close to $1.4 million in commercial value. She didn't know what kind of man said nothing in that room, but she was going to. Before we jump into the story, comment where in the world you are watching from and subscribe, because tomorrow's story is one you need to hear. The morning light came through the side windows of Marcus's workshop the way it always had, horizontal and gold and honest. A had built the workshop himself 3 years into the marriage, framing it out over a single weekend while Vanessa visited her sister in Richmond. The floor was poured concrete, sealed smooth. The shelves were pegboard and pine, measured twice and fastened right. Every tool had a place and went back to it. It was sanding the edge of a cabinet door when he heard the house wake up. The pipes, the coffee maker, the particular thump of Caleb jumping from the second stair instead of walking down it. His grandmother had told him once, her hand flat on his workbench, like she was taking an oath, a man who builds things has his hands in the truth. Everything else is just weather. A had been building things his whole life. He built the deck on the back of their Charlotte home with his Uncle Raymond over a long August weekend. A had retiled the master bathroom from scratch after Vanessa said she hated the original work. It framed and hung the built-in bookshelves in the living room, the ones Vanessa photographed for her Instagram page and did not credit to him. It was a structural engineer by trade, working for a mid-sized firm that consulted on commercial projects across the Carolinas. To Vanessa's family, this translated roughly to, he draws buildings. Her mother had asked once if he wore a hard hat to work. He said sometimes. She smiled in a way that suggested this confirmed something for her. What she did not know, what very few people knew, was that Marcus had been a silent investor in a small commercial real estate LLC since he was 32 years old, the year before he met Vanessa. His college friend Darren had brought him in for $40,000. He had stayed in. He had stayed quiet. Only his accountant and his attorney knew what the number had grown into. He had met Vanessa at a fundraiser for a literacy nonprofit 7 years ago now. She had been wearing a yellow dress and arguing confidently with a man twice her age about municipal zoning, and Marcus had watched her for 20 minutes before he introduced himself. She had laughed when he told her what he did for a living. Not meanly, just surprised. He remembered thinking that she was the kind of woman who surprised easily, and that he had found it beautiful. They had talked for 3 hours that night. She had asked him every question about structural engineering that most people never thought to ask. Load tolerances, the way bridges moved in wind, what it meant for a building to fail gracefully rather than catastrophically. He had driven home thinking she was the most curious person he'd ever met. They married 2 years later at a small ceremony in Charlotte. 64 people in a small garden venue off Park Road. Her father had shaken Marcus's hand at the end of the night and said simply, "You seem steady." Marcus had taken it as the highest compliment a man could offer. That had been before. Before the subtle shifts, he could now name clearly, looking back, the new perfume she didn't mention buying, a specific and expensive scent that appeared one Thursday and was never explained. The way her phone, which had once sat openly on the kitchen counter, now traveled with her into every room. The twice-weekly calls with Keisha that left her laughing in a register he hadn't heard in years. A had noticed these things and filed them the way a man files a hairline crack in a load-bearing wall, not ignoring it, not alarmed, just noting the location for when it mattered. It was on his second cup of coffee when his phone vibrated on the workbench. A message from Daron. Hey, we need to talk. Something you should probably know. Marcus set the cabinet door down. He looked at the message for a long moment, then he went inside. Daron drove down from Greensboro on a Saturday afternoon and sat at the workshop table with a coffee mug he didn't drink from. He had the look of a man delivering news he had debated delivering. You're going to want to hear this before you hear it some other way, Daron said. What Marcus heard over the next 40 minutes was this. Daron's wife had seen Vanessa twice in the last 3 months at a restaurant in Dilworth with a man named Preston Holt. Preston was a commercial real estate attorney, 44, recently separated, with a reputation for expensive suits and a tendency to introduce himself by his bar admission year. A drove a silver BMW M5 and owned a condo in South End that he mentioned whenever there was an opening to mention it. Daron's wife had not said anything at first because she was not sure she was sure. Now she was sure. Marcus thanked him. He poured his own coffee out. He sat for a while after Daron left. He did not call Vanessa. He did not go upstairs and ask her where she had been on the Saturdays she'd told him she was shopping with her friend Keisha. He went to his laptop and opened the joint banking portal. His hands did not shake. He had expected maybe a couple of dinners charged to the account, a few transferred expenses. What he found instead was 26 months of patterned withdrawals, always between $200 and $800, always on a Friday, always from the ATM at a branch near Dilworth. A total, when he had added it up 3 times to be certain, of $14,200 from their shared account. He had not noticed because he had not been looking. He had been busy trusting her. His face remained perfectly calm. He opened a new browser tab and searched the county property records. He typed Preston Holt's name. There was the South End condo, purchased 3 years ago. There was also a name on the deed alongside his. The name was Vanessa Ellington. She had co-signed the deed. She had co-signed the deed using his surname, his name, on a property that belonged to another man. He moved with the same deliberate calm that defined all his actions when the stakes were highest. He photographed the bank records with his phone. He forwarded the property deed to his personal email. He went to the kitchen drawer where Vanessa kept her paperwork and found, beneath a stack of Amara school forms and a warranty card for a coffee maker, a folded sheet of paper. He unfolded it slowly. It was a consultation summary from a family law attorney in Uptown, dated 11 weeks ago. Vanessa's initials were in the corner. The consultation had covered asset division under North Carolina law, the family home specifically, and parental custody arrangements for 2 minor children. There was a handwritten note in the margin in Vanessa's looping script, circled twice, find out about the LLC. She had thought to ask. She had not known what to ask about. She had been planning this for nearly a year, and still she had not found the right question. He photographed the consultation summary. He folded it back exactly as he had found it, and returned it beneath the warranty card for the coffee maker. He sat in the kitchen for 3 minutes without moving. Then he walked back to his workshop. He opened a new folder on his desktop. He named it simply Cornbread. Patricia Okafor had been practicing family law in Charlotte for 23 years, and she had the kind of stillness that came from watching people make irreversible decisions for 2 decades and understanding exactly what each one cost. Her office was on the 14th floor of a building Marcus had helped engineer the seismic upgrades for. He had never told her that. She reviewed the documents without expression. The bank records, the property deed, the family law consultation summary. A clean spreadsheet Marcus had prepared. Dates and withdrawal amounts annotated in his structural engineer's handwriting. Precise, level, verifiable. She looked up. She co-signed the deed with him. Yes. Using your surname. Yes. Patricia set the documents down in a neat stack. Mr. Ellington, she has also initiated a consultation summary from a competitor's office. That means she is either planning to file or actively contemplating it. Either way, she believes she has a head start you know nothing about. She paused. What she does not have is any accurate picture of your total financial position. I'd like to change that, Marcus said. They spent 2 hours going through everything: his salary, his vested benefits at the firm, and the LLC, the one Vanessa had signed an amendment to 4 years ago, when Deron had needed a secondary signature for a financing document, and Marcus had explained it as a formality. She had signed without reading it. He had not asked her to read it. He had not hidden it. He had simply not explained it beyond what she had asked. Patricia looked at the LLC's current appraised valuation twice. She has no idea, she said. No, Marcus said. She does not. Real power operated in quiet rooms. His uncle Raymond had a house in the Belmont neighborhood, the same one Marcos had visited every summer as a boy, where the backyard still held the rusted frame of a swing set his grandfather had built from pipe and rope. 40 years ago. Raymond was 61 now, retired from 3 decades in commercial HVAC, and he kept his kitchen clean and his counsel to himself unless it was asked for directly. Marcus sat across from him at the table with 2 mugs of coffee and told him everything. Raymond listened without interrupting. When Marcus finished, he set his mug down. She signed a deed, Raymond said. Under North Carolina real estate law, that constitutes co-ownership of a property. Patricia says it creates a strong marital waste argument in the asset division. Raymond was quiet for a moment. Your grandmother used to say, "Don't go looking for what a person is. Just watch what they do when they think no one's looking." He paused. You're an engineer, Marcos. You know the difference between a load-bearing wall and a decorative one. Which one do you think Vanessa believed you were? Marcus nodded slowly. He drove home on a Tuesday evening with nothing changed on his face. Vanessa was at the stove. Amara was doing homework at the kitchen island. Caleb was watching something on the living room TV. Marcus set his back by the door. He kissed Amara on the top of her head. He looked at Vanessa. Smells good, he said. She smiled at him the way she had been smiling at him for months. Practiced and sufficient and warm in the way that performance is warm. Baked chicken, she said. 30 minutes. He sat on the couch next to Caleb and watched 12 minutes of a nature documentary about migratory birds. He helped Amara with a long division problem she had gotten wrong twice. At the dinner, he thanked Vanessa for cooking. He was doing what he had always done, paying attention. The following weekend, Patricia's paralegal pulled the full property record on Preston Holt's South End condo. What they found was that the property had been purchased using a refinancing loan tied to a second property, a rental home in Concord that Holt had listed on his taxes as an arm's-length investment lease. The tenant of record, it turned out, was Holt's own mother. This was not, Patricia's paralegal noted with clinical precision, a tax filing situation that would survive any meaningful scrutiny from the right set of eyes. The paralegal went further. She pulled Holt's Bar Association record. There was a single notation from 4 years prior, a disciplinary inquiry, ultimately closed without action, related to a client trust account discrepancy. The inquiry had been closed. The notation remained. Patricia reviewed this and circled it with a red pen without comment. Additionally, the forensic accounting firm Patricia, retained for the asset division work, turned their attention to the LLC deed transaction Vanessa had co-signed. They found that the timing of the refinancing, 3 years ago, shortly after Vanessa had begun the relationship with Holt, coincided exactly with a $22,000 transfer from the couple's home equity line of credit. The transfer had been classified by Vanessa as a home improvement project. Patricia's accountant flagged the absence of any corresponding permit, invoice, or contractor record for work of that value done at the Charlotte address. The $22,000 had moved. It had not built anything Marcus could point to on his own property. His face had been entirely calm when Patricia walked him through it. He had always known that the numbers told the story if you read them carefully enough. Marcus had forwarded the full LLC documentation and valuation report to Patricia before he went to bed. 3 days passed, like the weeks before a foundation, for invisible work, preparation that would not be seen until the structure rose above the ground. Some things you didn't say out loud. You built them into the load. Vanessa's mother had suggested the Sunday birthday dinner 5 weeks out. Amara was turning 10. She wanted cake, family, and the round table in the dining room, the one Marcus had refinished from a piece of salvage oak and sealed with 3 coats of polyurethane. The table that had been at the center of every holiday and birthday and Sunday dinner since they moved into the house. Vanessa had agreed readily. pleased with the occasion and with herself for suggesting it. Her parents drove up from Rock Hill. Her sister Keisha came from Greensboro with a wrapped gift and wine. Marcus had made the cornbread that morning, the same recipe his grandmother had left him on a handwritten index card, and set it in the middle of the table, the way he always had. He had named the folder on his laptop after it for a reason. Her parents drove up from Rock Hill. Her sister Keisha came from Greensboro. Marcus' uncle Raymond arrived 20 minutes early because Marcus had asked him to, quietly, with a look that Raymond understood without needing it explained. Patricia Okafor arrived at 3:45, 15 minutes before dinner was to begin. She carried a leather portfolio and a comb she did not need to manufacture. Marcus answered the door. Vanessa came around from the kitchen and stopped. "Who is?" she started. "Patricia is my attorney," Marcus said. "She's going to sit with us for a few minutes before we eat." The room shifted. Vanessa's mother looked between them. Keisha straightened in her chair. "Marcus." Vanessa's voice had an edge now, controlled but visible. "This isn't the time. Amara and Caleb are going to eat in the kitchen," Marcus said evenly. He looked at his children. "You two go on ahead. Birthday cake is in there waiting." They went. The room was quiet. Marcus sat at the head of the table. Patricia sat to his right. She opened the portfolio. "I want to start," Marcus said, "with something that happened about a year ago." It placed the first document on the table, the family law consultation summary, Vanessa's initials clear in the corner. Vanessa went still. It placed the second document, the property deed for the South End condo, both names on it. Her father leaned forward. He read it slowly. He looked up at his daughter. She did not look back at him. It placed the third document, the bank records, 26 months, 47 withdrawals, the annotated spreadsheet in his handwriting, $14,200. Vanessa's mother said, very softly, "Vanessa." "This," Patricia said in the even tone of a woman who had done this many times, "constitutes marital waste under North Carolina law. Combined with the co-signed deed establishing a financial entanglement with a third party during the marriage, Mr. Ellington has a documented and defensible claim against the marital estate that significantly affects how assets will be divided." Vanessa found her voice. "You don't understand what this looks like. It is also," Patricia continued, without inflection, "the primary managing partner of a commercial LLC, carrying a current appraised value of approximately $1.4 million. You may recall signing an amendment to that LLC's operating agreement 4 years ago. At the time, you were added as a minority interest holder to satisfy a financing requirement. At current valuation, that interest is worth roughly $87,000. She paused a single beat. "You hold it in your name." The room was entirely still. Vanessa was looking at Marcus the way a person looks at a building they thought they understood when they finally find the actual blueprint. "You never told me." "I didn't hide it," Marcus said. "I gave you the paperwork. You signed it. You chose not to read it." He held her gaze. "You chose a lot of things without reading them very carefully." "I made a mistake." Her voice broke at the edges. "Marcus, Keisha said nothing. Vanessa's father reached forward and set the property deed back at the center of the table. It pushed it away from himself with one finger, as if returning something that no longer belonged in his hands. "You put his name on another man's property," he said. He was not speaking to Marcus. He was speaking to his daughter. The silence that followed had both weight and shape. "I'm not angry, Vanessa," Marcus said. And it was true, not because he had made peace with her, but because he had made peace with himself, and the two things had turned out to require entirely different amounts of time. "I'm clear. Those are different things." He stood. He collected the documents one by one and returned them to Patricia's portfolio. He straightened his jacket. "Patricia will be in touch about next steps. Amara's cake is in the kitchen. I'd like everyone to be present for that." He walked to the kitchen door. He did not look back. Behind him, the room held its breath. And then Vanessa made a sound. Not a word, not a sentence, just a sound. The kind that comes out of a person when something irreversible has finished being understood. It rose and then subsided. It was the sound of someone realizing, fully and finally, what they had thrown away. She was crying. He had said nothing. He had built everything she would not be able to take. 14 months had passed like water over poured concrete. reshaping the surface of things, revealing what was underneath. Marcus's new house was in a quiet no-dan neighborhood. A three-bedroom craftsman A had bought at a number that made his realtor pause, and that he had renovated almost entirely himself across 4 deliberate weekends. The back porch faced east. He had built it board by board from reclaimed oak, sourced at a salvage yard outside Gastonia. A had planted a Japanese maple in the corner of the yard. It was still young, its leaves a particular dark and quiet red. The LLC had expanded. A second property had appraised at a figure that made his accountant exhale with relief and something close to admiration. The engineering firm had promoted him to principal on a mixed-use development in South Park. He had started mentoring 2 younger engineers through a program at Johnson C. Smith. The work was good. The days were full in the way that actually counted. Her name was Deanna Hartwell. She was a pediatric physical therapist, 41, with a direct manner and the habit of asking the second question after most people stopped at the first. She had crouched down on her second visit to his house to look at the roots of the Japanese maple without being asked, turning the soil back gently to check how it was taking. He had noticed that. What had become of Vanessa? Marcus learned through Raymond. The discovery of the tax irregularities on Preston Holt's rental property had surfaced during the divorce proceedings. When Patricia's teen subpoenaed the property records as part of documenting the marital waste claim, the IRS referral had not been Marcus's doing. It had been a natural consequence of the paperwork existing and the right people reading it. Preston Holt had retained criminal defense counsel. It had vacated the South End condo. It had relocated to a smaller city. Vanessa had received a significantly reduced share of the marital estate, partly due to the documented withdrawals and partly due to what the co-signed deed revealed about the disposition of marital assets. She was working at a property management company in Rock Hill, near her parents. Keisha had not spoken to her publicly since the Sunday of the birthday dinner. Her mother visited on Sundays, Raymond said. The visits were short. Marcus had heard all of it once. He had registered it. He did not go back to it. Bitterness required ongoing emotional investment in people who no longer deserved it. It was on the back porch on a Sunday morning in October when Deanna came out with 2 mugs and settled into the chair beside him. The maple had taken root. The morning was clear and unhurried, the kind of October morning that light moves through slowly and without any intention of leaving. "You built all of this yourself?" she asked, meaning the porch. "Most of it," he said. She looked at it for a moment, the way she had looked at the maple's roots, with genuine attention and no performance of admiration. "It's level," she said. "That's the thing about foundations," Marcus said. "Get those right, and everything else follows." He drank his coffee. The light moved across the yard the way light moves in October, deliberate, patient, and not in any hurry at all. He was free. He was solvent. He was unbothered. I hope you enjoyed that one. Be sure to like the video and subscribe so you don't miss the next story. I've picked out 2 more for you that I think you'll really like.